Absolutely. Here's the full speech in the Jessica Oppre-style. Classy, real, powerful. Confidence doesn't beg for attention. It doesn't scream for validation. It just is. You see, when a man is truly confident, there's a calmness about him that speaks before he ever opens his mouth. He doesn't walk into a room trying to dominate it. He simply arrives, and people feel his presence. He doesn't need to tell you who he is. You sense it in the way he carries himself, the way he makes eye contact, not with aggression, but with intention. The way he listens, not waiting for his turn to speak, but actually absorbing the moment. He doesn't need to prove anything because he already knows who he is. And that's the part most people miss. Real confidence isn't about convincing others. It's about no longer needing to. In contrast, insecurity is noisy. It's frantic. It tries to impress, overcompensate, and fill every silence with sound. It brags, it name drops, it shows off. It hides behind arrogance, control, and sometimes even fake charm. But what insecurity fails to understand is this. The louder you try to prove your worth, the more you reveal you don't believe it yourself. Confident men don't compete. They don't chase approval because they've already approved of themselves. They're not desperate to be liked because they know what they bring to the table. They can sit in silence without squirming. They can hear no without falling apart. And they can walk away from anything that doesn't align with their peace without turning it into drama. And that silence, that self-assured energy, it's magnetic. Because while insecurity demands your attention, confidence commands it. There's something deeply attractive about a man who knows how to hold his emotions, not suppress them, not explode from them, but hold them with control and self-awareness. Emotional maturity doesn't mean being emotionless. It means being emotionally intelligent. It's knowing how to recognize what you're feeling, name it, sit with it, and still move forward with clarity. A woman doesn't want a man who pretends to have it all together. She doesn't expect perfection. But what she deeply desires is a man who knows how to handle life's waves without drowning in them. A man who doesn't ghost her when things get uncomfortable. A man who can say, "I need some space to think," instead of shutting down completely. A man who can apologize not as a weakness, but as a strength. And you know what's sexy? A man who doesn't take everything personally. A man who doesn't react out of ego, but responds with understanding. He doesn't need to win the argument, he wants to understand the conflict. He listens to hear, not to defend. He's able to regulate his impulses, to speak with care even when he's frustrated, to feel anger without weaponizing it. Because here's the truth, any man can raise his voice. Any man can get defensive, deflect, blame, or disappear. But it takes real strength, real masculinity, to stay, to listen, and to feel, without losing yourself in the process. When a woman sees that in a man something shifts, she feels safe. She lets her guard down because she knows she's not dealing with a boy in a grown man's body. She's dealing with a man who has done the work, a man who is emotionally steady, not emotionally chaotic. A man who owns his feelings, but doesn't make others responsible for fixing them. It's in the way he communicates even when it's hard. It's in how he respects her emotions without trying to solve them or make them inconvenient. It's in how he holds himself together when everything else is falling apart. And most of all, it's in how he refuses to let emotional immaturity sabotage something meaningful, simply because it would be easier to run than to grow. There is nothing more captivating than a man who knows who he is, where he's going, and why he wakes up in the morning. Purpose isn't about having everything figured out, it's about having something you're building, something that gives your life direction, clarity, and meaning. A man on purpose moves differently. He's not aimless. He's not out here just passing time, living for the weekend, or waiting for someone to rescue him from boredom. He's driven, not by desperation, but by vision, and women can feel that. They can feel when your energy is rooted in something beyond just them. Because here's a truth most don't want to say out loud. She doesn't want to be your whole world. She wants to be part of a man's world that already has depth, ambition, and focus. Purpose gives you presence when you're grounded in what matters to you. Your craft, your mission, your calling. You automatically radiate strength and stability. You become more than just another man trying to impress her. You become a force, someone she can respect, someone she can admire, someone she can believe in, because a purposeful man is hard to distract. He doesn't drop everything for attention. He doesn't chase temporary highs or constantly need validation. He's focused. He's building something. In that kind of discipline, that kind of structure, it's rare. It's powerful. Women are naturally drawn to men who are in motion, not emotionally stagnant, not coasting, but growing. Not because of what you have right now, but because of who you're becoming. Because when you're aligned with your purpose, it shows in your habits, your confidence, your boundaries, and your energy. And even if she doesn't fully understand what you're building, she'll feel drawn to how much it matters to you. Because passion is attractive, drive is irresistible, and commitment to something other than just getting her is what makes her feel safe enough to come closer. One of the biggest mistakes men make is believing that more attention equals more attraction, that the more you're around, the more she'll want you. But presence isn't about always being there. It's about knowing how to show up and when to step back. There's a quiet power in a man who doesn't need to constantly chase, who doesn't flood her with messages the minute she stops responding, who understands that a woman needs space to breathe, to think, to feel his absence, not just his availability. Respecting her space doesn't mean withdrawing love. It means having enough self, worth to know that you don't need to be in her face to be on her mind. In fact, over-accessibility can become unattractive. When you're always available, always responding within seconds, always orbiting around her schedule, she stops feeling your presence as something special. It becomes background noise, expected, predictable. But when you give her room to miss you, to wonder about you, to anticipate your next move, you shift the energy. You give her the gift of longing. Now here's the other side of the coin. When you are present, you need to truly be there. Not distracted, not half in, half out. Command your presence. What does that mean? It means you enter the room with awareness. It means when you speak with intent, not just to fill silence, but to add value. It means when she's talking, you listen. Not with the goal of replying, but with the desire to understand. It means you carry yourself like a man who knows he belongs without needing to prove it. Commanding your presence isn't about arrogance. It's about energy. It's about knowing your value so deeply that people feel it without you having to announce it. When you look at her, you see her, and when she looks at you, she sees stability, grounded, composed, focused, because a man who commands his presence doesn't need to take up all the space. He just needs to own the space he's in, with quiet strength and conscious intent. When you respect her independence while still showing up as a man who stands firm in who he is, you send a clear message. You don't need her to complete you. But you value the connection, and you're not afraid to let it breathe, that balance, that confidence to both give space and hold space, is what makes you unforgettable. There's something deeply attractive about a man who knows where he draws the line, and isn't afraid to enforce it. A lot of men think saying yes to everything is what keeps a woman happy. They confuse pleasing with connection. They believe that if they just agree, stay available, and avoid conflict at all costs, she'll want to stick around. But here's the truth. When you have no boundaries, you lose her respect, even if she doesn't say it out loud. Because women aren't drawn to the man who bends over backward for approval. They're drawn to the man who respects himself enough to say, "This is what I'm okay with. This is what I will not tolerate. This is where I stand, even if it means standing alone." Boundaries are a signal of strength. Not just emotional strength, but mental discipline. They show that you know who you are, and that you won't let attraction blind you into losing that. They say, "I can love you, but I won't abandon myself in the process." A man with boundaries doesn't play games, but he also doesn't let anyone play with him. He doesn't ghost, but he also doesn't beg. He communicates directly, not with ultimatums, but with clarity. He's not interested in control. He's interested in mutual respect. You see, when you let people walk over you, you're not being kind. You're being passive. And passivity breeds resentment. Resentment turns into coldness, and coldness kills attraction. But when you can say, "No, that doesn't work for me," or "I need time for myself right now," or "This behavior crosses a line," you invite a different kind of energy. You invite respect, and respect is the foundation of real desire. Because the man who has boundaries is the man who doesn't need validation from a woman. He chooses connection when it's aligned. And that choice makes him powerful. It means when he says yes, it's intentional, not desperate. When he stays, it's not because he's afraid to be alone. It's because he wants to be there. And that difference is everything. A woman may not always be able to articulate it, but she feels it. She feels the safety in your firmness. She feels the structure in your presence. And she knows, even if she pushes, even if she tests, you won't fold just to keep her close. One of the deepest human desires, especially for a woman, is to be seen, not just looked at, not just complimented, but truly felt and understood. And here's the thing, most men don't do this. They hear her words, but they don't catch what's behind them. They see her beauty, but miss the subtle shifts in her mood. They give attention, but not presence. But the man who knows how to make a woman feel seen without performance, without manipulation, he stands out. You don't have to say all the right things. You don't have to be overly romantic or have some perfect script. You just have to show up with your full awareness, look her in the eye, not to inspect her, but to connect with her. Listen not to fix her, but to understand her world. Notice when her smile looks different. Notice when her silence speaks louder than her words. That's what it means to make her feel seen, and it's in the smallest things. Remembering how she takes her coffee. Pausing mid-conversation because you felt a shift in her tone. Asking about that one story she told you weeks ago, the one she didn't think mattered. Noticing when her energy dips and gently checking in. "You okay? I felt something change." That kind of attention, that presence, it doesn't just impress her. It moves her, because it tells her, "I don't just see the version of you that everyone else sees. I see what's underneath, and I care enough to pay attention." It's the opposite of performative romance. This isn't about grand gestures or public displays. This is the quiet, powerful form of intimacy, the kind that builds trust, safety, and deep attraction. Because when a woman feels seen, she feels safe. And when she feels safe, she starts to open in ways most men never get to experience. You don't get there by pretending. You don't get there by pressing. You get there by being still, by being aware, by being emotionally attuned enough to say, "I see you," even when you think you're hiding. And the beauty of it is, when a woman feels truly seen, she can't help but start to see you more deeply too. She starts to lean in, to relax, because suddenly she's not just trying to impress you, she's connecting with you. She's not performing, she's revealing. And in that space, something powerful begins to unfold.